Hyperdrive Hockey is brought to you by the Game Over Network. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at Game Over Network and catch Hyperdrive Hockey in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other good streaming platform. Hello, beautiful citizens of Planet Hockey. My name is Max Vanut. Welcome to another episode of Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network. Make sure to subscribe to Game Over Network on YouTube. Subscribe to your local Game Over in your area, whether it's Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. We are everywhere, and we are with you today. With me, Daphne Malbeuf. Daph, how are you doing?
Hey, Max. Pretty good. And yourself? And I wanted to ask, how was your Friday night watching Ovi and Crosby confrontation?
I wasn't mad. I was just a little disappointed. It was a good game. It was not the game. You know, Ovi and Sid did not have their best game. It was a good game, though. It's just, you know, like what Ovi did the next day, or was it on Sunday, when the Caps played the Blues with blue helmet? Loved it. It wasn't the game, but I enjoyed it. But, oh my God. Oh, but something happened, though. Something beautiful happened.
What is it?
Oh, I'm going to get to it. But just before, Kevin Laramie on the board. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I've been watching a lot of hockey also lately. And, you know, my hot take on Ovi is just going to become less and less hot and more fact. I'm telling you guys, when the season gets tough, the toughness will not get going. Ovi's not going to do it this year. Anyways.
Whoa, wait a minute. How can you come up with this? He scored another bunch and the Caps keep winning, and my guy is doubling down.
Yeah, I'm doubling down because I've been talking to a lot of my friends, and you know, I'm friends with some people that are on TV talking about hockey, and we all agree because right now the ice is open. There's space. Comes February, there won't be that space, and yeah.
Wow.
We'll keep on. I'm gonna keep on doubling down over the next few months.
Okay, I'm taking a note of this, and you know what? You know what, Kev? If Ovi doesn't beat the record this year, I'm taking you to dinner. On me. I'm taking that. You don't even have to put anything on your side if he does. It's cool. I'm that convinced right now. I am that convinced. But you know, guys, what happened to me on Friday night watching the game?
What is it? And Kev, I want to say that is bold because I wanted to back off on what we said last week, and you're just doubling down on it, and I love it. But what happened to you, Max?
So why was my girlfriend out on Friday night? I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, she was just out with friends. So I still had some work to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep working with the game on the back, and I'm going to order pizza. So here's the thing. Literally on the corner of my street. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to be generous, 250, 300 meters. A beautiful, amazing Napolitan pizzeria that we love. Go there very often. Beautiful little restaurant. Amazing pizzas. And so I'm like, I'm just going to order the pizza. I'm going to say it, from Stella Pizzeria in Montreal, because it's a small shop. You know what? Let's support them. Stella Pizzeria. But something gets into me, and I'm like, I feel like, you know, I don't do this often, but just, you know, this disgusting American pizza, fast food type. And I'm like, you know, maybe. And I opened the website of a big brand. This one I'm not going to say, but a big brand of big, fat, disgusting American pizza fast food. I'm like, maybe like if it's around the same price or a bit less expensive, I'm going to go that route. I opened the website, which I realized I had not opened in more than a year and a half because it had my old address, and I've been living where I am right now for a year and a half. And it's that big of a place that, you know, they have a reward system. I had a free pizza waiting for me.
What?
I had a freaking free pizza. It was there waiting for me for the past year and a half, and I had forgotten about it. So you know what? I take back everything I said a minute and a half ago. My Friday night watching Ovi and Sid was completely amazing because I did it with a freaking free pizza, baby. Oh, that was beautiful.
In this economy, you know, a free pizza is well received.
It's a free pizza. And I couldn't even complain, because I could have had just a little bit of complaint because I live close to that place too. But let's say a kilometer. And so it's also that big of a place that you can track where they, they're putting it in the oven, they're taking it on the road. I think I was on the end of his road because it was not that hot.
It was a little bit cold, but it's
despite
free.
living a minute
It's
away.
free.
Exactly. So I was like, you know what? I paid the tip. That's it. So I paid the tip. So I gave him a better tip because I had it for free. So let's give my man the
pizza. That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's kind. But winning at life feels like winning at life when you have a free pizza on a Friday night.
The little victor. That moment, I knew I was going to have a good weekend. An amazing weekend.
Those little things.
Exactly. We got a lot of things to talk about today that are not pizza related. We will, of course, talk coaches because there is some rumble around the league that maybe some are already on the hot seat. We will, of course, talk about, well, at this moment in time, I guess we can say the hottest team to start an NHL season factually, because the Winnipeg Jets are the first team in NHL history to start with 14 wins in their first 15 games. They're back on another 6-game winning streak. Connor Hellebuyck, my dude, is quickly transforming into a brick wall. That is completely beautiful to see. Parenthesis on the Winnipeg Jets fan, who we talked about a few weeks ago, Daph, who, might not have the strength in numbers right now, but those chants out of Winnipeg, chanting at Jake Ottinger this weekend. How did they phrase it? Team USA backup? Because, of course, they're out there saying, hey, Connor Hellebuyck is going to be the starter. I guess going to be the starter unless disaster strikes. That was beautiful to see. We will talk about the Colorado Avalanche, Calgary Flames, everything in between. And we will get specifically to the hot seat. But first, let's start here. Let's start in the East because you might not be aware of this, but there's been a lot of rambles in Montreal about the coaching situation. It started a few weeks back when Pierre Lebrun said on French sports radio, we talked about it, that the word around the league was that the Montreal Canadiens did not have enough experience behind the bench. And now, well, are the Montreal Canadiens looking to add some experience behind the bench? At first, the talk was, is Martin St. Louis on the hot seat? Which I don't know about you, Daph. I never believed Martin St. Louis was on the hot seat because he signed the contract extension this summer. I think he still has a lot of leash.
Yeah, and I think, there are more expectations this season, but I think we're going to be patient. Yeah, we're going to be patient with him. And who do you want to have as a coach for this young team? Is Martin St. Louis. For me, it's a no-brainer. But I was surprised to see people go off and about St. Louis situation and just saying that maybe he's not the right coach for it, the right fit for it. I was really surprised because we've been saying the exact contrary for the past maybe since he's been there, but for the past season, we're like, okay, he's the right fit. He's going to bring this team to a whole new level. We haven't seen this season, but is he the one to blame? I'm not sure of that.
I'm not sure either. I think in retrospective, we overestimated that roster, to be honest. But I think sometimes we might look, we might be too glued to the window because the talk right now is regression, right? A lot of people are talking about regression in Montreal, and how about just about everybody but Cole Caulfield, who is leading the league in goals at the moment we are recording this podcast, is regressing. Here's the thing. I think I could be wrong. I can be dead wrong. Let me know in the comment if I'm completely wrong. I'm completely open to being wrong. I think a lot of us, when we look at the rebuild plan, we see it as, let's say there is a graph, we see it as a straight line, keeping going up, maybe with just tiny minor bump into it. It's not how it goes. It's hopefully how it goes. But for most teams, it's not how it goes, especially when you don't have the luxury to draft a generational player or a borderline generational player. I'm thinking of the Toronto Maple Leafs here. They drafted Austin Matthews. They never looked back. And Austin Matthews came, late in the process. He came in after Riley, after Nylander, after Marner. But still, I think we can agree that if they don't draft Austin Matthews, they draft that drafted a year prior would have been Connor McDavid. Yeah, fine. If that drafted Nico Hischier, like the year after, no disrespect to Nico Hischier, it's not always like this. There are going to be bigger bumps, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's that huge of a step back to me.
Yeah, and we had good examples with the Senators and the Buffalo Sabres on that one.
Oh, I think a lot of people are not going to be here saying this because these teams are still in limbo. They are still in limbo. You know what? It is interesting, though. Look at the Colorado Avalanche. They hire Patrick Roy. They make the playoff. Patrick Roy leaves. And then they have that 48, I want to say, point season. A 48 points. If that's not regression, I don't know what is. And they had that 48-point season in 2016, 2017. And at that moment, we think they have the worst luck ever. Every other team win the lottery, they go back as far back as they can that year. But they get freaking lucky in retrospective and draft Cale Makar. I'm saying lucky with quotation mark because Cale Makar, if you remember, was considered a reach at the moment because he was playing BCHL, I think it was called at the moment. Junior B hockey, headed for college after that, was not a big player. A lot of people were like, oh, Cale Makar that high. Yeah, well, hell yeah, Cale Makar that high, number one. And they never looked back too after that. After that 48-point season, if you take us back to 2017, we're like, oh my God, the Colorado Avalanche are so far away. They haven't missed the playoffs since. So maybe I'm too positive here, but I don't know.
No, but if you're quoting luck, look at who we had, and I'm not saying that it's not a good pick, but the time that the Montreal Canadiens had the chance to have a first pick overall, that wasn't the best year. That wasn't Connor Bedard's year. So if we're talking about luck here, maybe it plays. It plays a longer process. Yeah. Yeah, and if we're completely honest here, I feel that the problem this year with the Montreal Canadiens is that the players that were supposed to have a good season and be good and have some kind of progression are not progressing. They are regressing. And not regressing, but just maybe stalling. Mike Matheson had a good season last year. He does not have that kind of good start that we expected, maybe the kind of performance that we expect from him.
Yeah.
Also, David Savard, like the players that are giving it to you right now is Gallagher, is Jake Evans.
The grinders are there. This is what's amazing. The grinders are there. The grinders are showing up. Josh Anderson's having a good bounce back season.
Yeah, but you're not having your scorer, and this is what has been diminishing the team. But yeah, and I don't know, like when I'm thinking about the problems with the Montreal Canadiens, I feel like we don't know where to start. And it may be just and it's maybe just kind of starting winning game by game, having the winning streak, 2 games. I'm not asking for a lot, but I think they just need to get their confidence back.
A few things about what you just said. Number one, about Mike Matheson. So on last episode, which you can go back and listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or our YouTube channel, Game Over Network, the clip we took out of it about Andrew's take on Lane Hudson winning the Calder is getting some traction right now, and we received a lot of comments about it. And you just talked about Mike Matheson. I was on team, you have to start Matheson on the first PP just out of respect for what he did last season. And from then on, my thought was, as soon as Lane Hudson has clearly shown that he is the better option, you put him there. I think we're there. I think we are there. Against the Buffalo Sabres, you get Lane Hudson once, a smart little shot right where Cole Caulfield is standing, deflection in the back of the net. And just to be clear here, I guess, yeah, technically it's a demotion for Matheson, but it's not in the sense that a lot of Habs fans are turning on Matheson simply because there is Lane Hudson. It's kind of pissing him off that You have a guy that clearly has more offensive potential, that is right there waiting for his chance. And so they were kind of taking out of Madison, but Madison, since being in Montreal, has played over his head. He has. I have the utmost respect for the guy.
Yeah.
But right now, Hudson has arrived. Yes, the fact that he's on the second unit makes that second unit maybe a little more dangerous, but it's to the detriment of the first unit. So you know what? I think we're there. No disrespect to Mike Madison. I think we are there. Lane Hudson, despite having 0 goal, is on pace for 50 assists so far this year. As a rookie, put him there. I think we're there.
And maybe the problem is that, Max, is that we're persistent on things that we should maybe let go of or try new things. At this point, with the success or no success at all that you've had since the beginning of the season, I think for me, you need to do something about it. And for me, I feel that this is the most frustrating part. I don't know why we are persistent on things that are not working.
Yeah. No, I agree. There is a stubbornness that I don't fully understand right now.
And does it come from Martin Saint-Louis?
I think so. But you know what? Martin Saint-Louis and Kent Hughes, we were stubborn about the idea of not losing Caden Primo for nothing last year, which brought the whole triangle of goaltending. And let's be real right now. Caden Primo is not doing the job. Really not doing it. That game against Buffalo, thank God Martin Saint-Louis pulled him off in the end, because that game would have been lost. And there, we're talking about regression, clear regression in Caden Primo's play. I always felt like Caden Primo's problem was that he doesn't have the short memory needed for prime goaltending. I feel like he gets in his head when push comes to shove.
Yeah.
I felt like he had worked on that at the end of last season, and clearly not at the moment. Clearly not. So
do you bring Dobish in?
Well, not right now because he's injured. When he's ready?
Yeah, when he's ready.
Honestly, I don't know. I feel the problem is I was hoping to see him have a game or two at some point this season. I feel like this is too early. I feel like it's too early. It's really right now. Nothing, absolutely nothing is clicking at the right time.
And were we too optimistic about thinking about being in the mix?
That's the second point. So that was the second point. Daph, thank you for bringing it. The Montreal Canadiens management has only themselves to blame. Nobody forced them. Nobody. Don't get to me about media problem. And no, I'm not buying that. Get out of here with it. Nobody asked the Montreal Canadiens to come out at the golf tournament. Listen, every year there are two things. Every year, the train station is full of muggles. That's what Mrs. Weasley said. And second thing is every year, the Montreal Canadiens come out with a clear communication line. One year it's attitude. It's this year we're in the mix. We're in the mix. Nobody. Okay, so that's your. So we are judging them on the bar that they set for themselves. And they place that bar that high, and they're not ready. They are not ready. I think the bar was too high. I will say that personally, I did buy it. I did look at the team and go, yeah, I think so. It was a strong reach because when you think about it, they brought in Patrick Laine. That was it. Other than that, all of the rest was based on progression. But I did feel like, yeah, you know what? Depending on your definition of being in the mix, yeah, I do feel like they can be eliminated later, I guess.
Yeah.
And clearly that bar was too high.
Yeah, and the plan changed also. And when we think about it, like the mix line was good because it was vague. So you could, like set from some interpretation, but I feel like this is what they thought they would have to do to keep their fans engaged. And it just bring a lot of nightmare there because you said it. They were the one who brought it like brought this line, this communication line, and now they've changed. Maybe they've changed the mind of the fans, and yeah, but the plan totally changed with Patrick Laine's injury. At the same time, we didn't have any guarantee that he would have success.
No, absolutely not. It was already a gamble, and it's a gamble that unfortunately so far. Just to let you guys know, Patrick Laine has skated this week alone. He has skated alone in Montreal, but I know Renaud Lavoie on TVA Sports said that in the best case scenario, if all the stars align, he could be back before the end of November. But he did precise many times if all the stars align. Like this is, I was listening to that segment, so it feels like even himself was like, this is a reach, but this is what could be.
And at this point, you don't want to rush this.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Please
I agree on
don't.
100%. So the Montreal Canadiens could be bringing help behind the bench without firing Martin St. Louis. At least this is what a report came out of Montreal on Monday. It came from, of course, a former enforcer and now radio host Georges Larac, who said that, according to a source, Kent Hughes and Martin St. Louis had met in Toronto with Gérard Gallant. The team denied this claim completely. Kent Hughes went as far to say that he has never spoken to Gallant in his life. So far, this is what we have. Of course, you could argue this would not be the first time that a report has been reported as false by the officials to finally turn out to be true in a much more serious case. We can go as far back as only a year and a few months ago with Mike Babcock and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Practically everybody in the Columbus Blue Jackets organization said that this claim by Paul Bissonnette was false. Turned out it was true. So we'll wait and see. With that being said, I will absolutely not be surprised if the Montreal Canadiens bring help in the form of a veteran to help the coaching staff, because of what we started with, that clearly this coaching staff could help, could use the help. Would that be just consulting? Would that be a full-on new associated head coach? I do not know. But as I said, take that with a grain of salt. It has been denied for now. Are the Habs looking for help on some other on some other facet of the coaching staff? We'll have to wait and see on that.
And I feel that at this point, if they do so, Martin St. Louis has to be the one who choose who's the guy. He has to be part of this conversation. Yeah.
100%.
And maybe it comes from him. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, St. Louis is a guy that just like, no, because I feel like he's the type of person that just
wants to win at all cost.
No, not at all cost, but just he's stubborn. He likes to be in control, but I feel that he's kind of someone that could just like look himself in the mirror and says like, okay, I need help here. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one bringing out the conversation first.
Yeah, but you know what? We were talking just a minute ago about how the bar was set too high, and maybe I guess there were a lot of missed opportunities in the offseason for Montreal. Like, were they did the coaching staff and did Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon felt comfortable at that moment? Because it should have been there. We're not even a quarter of the season in. Like, yeah. Martin St. Louis has been the head coach since 2021-22, so early 2022. Like, yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is why I'm still skeptical. Like, well, I'm skeptical. Anyways, let's not get into this. But that feels like a weird timing is all I'm saying. But you know what? Sometimes the weirdest of timing can still lead to some good things. So we never know. So this is it for the Montreal Canadiens, who are out of the 32nd spot, wake up at 31st in the league on Tuesday morning after a middle-of-the-day win in Buffalo. That felt so weird. Do you guys allow me a 15-second rant? Just a 15-second rant.
Go ahead.
So there are what, 7 teams in Canada? I am not good in math. That means there are 25 American teams. Couldn't you have had 2 American teams at noon yesterday? We were working. Most of us. It's not a complete day off here. 25 American team. Grab an American. Well, all right. Thank you. I said, thank you. That felt good. Like, I'm lucky. That's my job. But, like, I don't know about you, Daph, but so many people were like, there's a game at noon? What the?
Yeah.
Is it Christmas? What's going on? Everybody were confused.
My boyfriend came out of his office. It was like, what the hell is going on? And I was watching the game in the back because I had to work on some other things, some other projects. And I was just like,
me too.
This just derailed my whole week anyway.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this one.
It's hilarious. My girlfriend never works from home on Monday, and yesterday she was working from home. That's why I'm like, I got to watch hockey. She's looking at me like, what? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, you know what? Let's go across the league now.
Max, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh.
They lost 7-1 against the Stars. There were 6 goals from the Dallas Stars in the first period. This loss plunged the Penguins in a 6-9-2 record on the season, the second worst mark in the Metropolitan Division. And this is raising questions.
Oh, yes.
About the level of concern that there is in the Pittsburgh locker room amid this slow starts. Do you feel that? And I don't know. I had a good feeling about this Penguin team, but
you did
it feels
at the start of the season.
I was like, I feel like they are gonna have the same kind of season that they had last season.
Okay.
To be honest, and now they're looking that there could be a lottery team.
There are so many things to unpack here. So first of all, when Sidney Crosby ended that 6-game losing streak, I was like, oh, he's just buying his coach sometimes. And just like Kevin Laramie, I'm doubling down on this here. This is what happened. He just bought time for Mike Sullivan. The Pittsburgh Penguins last year were 3 points out of the playoffs, 5th in Metropolitan. In 2023, they were a point out of the playoff. They were 1 point behind the Stanley Cup finalist, Florida Panthers. Right now, they are at 14 points. Okay, like, you can look at this and go, it's not dramatic. Like, the East is so freaking tight right now. It's absolutely crazy. Completely crazy how tight that East ranking is. But still, the Pittsburgh Penguins are tied with the Montreal Canadiens at -21 in goal differentials. That is worst in the league. Tied for worst in the league. And did you see those Sidney Crosby penalties on Monday night? Pure frustration penalties from Sid. And of course, I mean, it was 6-0 in the first period. It was absolutely disgusting. But the first, look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do think that the contract given to Sid is a bit of a mirage, and the possibility that he might be traded at some point is very real. Because contrary to the Washington Capitals, who have Connor McMichael, who came in and, help uplifted that team, and a lot of other young players like that, who made the right acquisition to help their roster and to propel them, playoff by a very, very small margin last year. This year looking absolutely fabulous. A young Ovechkin who found the fountain of youth. Pittsburgh did not do those right adjustments. I don't see, it's the 3rd year in a row now. I do not see how short-term there is a fix. But if there's only one that you can, even though it's not his fault, I'm sorry, but I think, so it's, we're recording this on November 12th. I think maybe in 3 episodes, we're talking about Mike Sullivan being out. I don't see how there's a coming back. There's no coming back from such a loss, from such frustration shown from your veteran. Gino went on the bench at some point too with Sid in the third. Like, no. I'm sorry. I think this is it for Mike Sullivan. It's been an amazing run in Pittsburgh. I think this is it.
And have you seen what he said after the game? Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm frustrated because I'm not. And I was just like, this is your liner? I don't know. I was kind of skeptical about this one.
I understand where you're coming from here. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion as a head coach. He has seen, rainfall and snow and everything. So I guess I can understand where he's coming from. But when you put that in perspective with the way the players acted on the ice, there is a lot of frustration in this locker room. So I agree with you that I'm just not sure if I believe them. But I was not, he's a veteran coach. But yeah, I just don't see how you go forward from this. It's just too big of a beating at home, by the way.
Yeah, and Crosby was saying that it's frustrating because it's not the reflection of how we've played lately, and it feels like we have a better hockey team than what they displayed out there in the last few games, and obviously they're not where they want to be. But can we say with certainty that they have much more than just a goalie problem, that the issues are just like much deeper? Because it's easy to point fingers at Tristan Jarry. He's been miserable. He's looking for a reset after his AHL stint, but it's much of bigger issues there.
Yeah, no, the lineup is thin. The lineup is consisted of players who are past their prime. I'm a big Chris Letang guy. In fact, I'm both a big Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson guy. Particularly Letang right now looks bad. He was on the ice for I want to say at least 3 of those goals in the first period, and implicated in the play negatively. Yeah. Sometimes, of course, you're on the ice, whatever. You were doing your thing, and but it's looking really bad right now. We were talking about regression. Here we're talking about normal regression from players past their primes. Yeah. Puljujärvi, Bunting, Beauvillier, they're players they brought in, but that are not really contributing much right now. So I think there needs to be a serious look in the mirror in Pittsburgh. And I think that the one last card you can try and play before taking the big 3 in the office and saying, guys, we ran this as far as we can. What do you guys want to do? Because if you're staying, you're going to stay on a bad team. I think we talked about this. Gino and Sid are movable. Unfortunately, I don't think Letang is movable right now, but Gino and Sid are movable. So I think the one last card you can play is, all right, let's fire Sullivan. He's been here for 9 years. Well, 9 years in a month. And see after that, there's still it can be the full season. You don't have to trade Sidney Crosby, Gino Malkin in the season. Maybe they never trade him. I don't even know. But play that card, see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and then just spitting chicklets were running that, I feel like, yesterday. To see Crosby with Nathan MacKinnon, the Colorado Avalanche. How beautiful would that be? How crazy of a dream this is.
You would be much more beautiful in Bleu Blanc Rouge, but...
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say that.
Just saying it like that.
So, I guess from a purely technical standpoint, the Colorado Avalanche are Bleu Blanc Rouge, just some different shades of it. Burgundy, blue, and silver.
Okay, Max, we've been talking about maybe possible moves from the Penguins. Could the Jets make some move also this season? Because they have been, a hell of a debut of the year so far. And are they going to need help to go further down the line?
It's going to be so interesting to see what the Jets do, Daph, because they are right now 14-1-0. So there is the question of, do you shake that chemistry or not? But to me, I am looking at this team, and yes, you can always improve, of course. Yeah. But I do think we're talking about a team that could benefit from a few rentals at the trade deadline. So last year, early on, I want to say in January, they brought in Sean Monahan from Montreal, and then at the trade deadline, they brought in Tyler Toffoli. We're talking those type of acquisition. Veteran who will be rental player comes January, come February. I think they don't have a choice. I'm not the biggest believer that the teams that wins the deadline wins the cup. And as I said, I do believe that for the Winnipeg Jets, we are talking about a team that will have to be very cautious not to break the chemistry.
Yeah.
But to me, this is not a team that will, as it's built right now, this is not a team that will sustain, I don't know, like let's say a big injury to Kyle Connor and keep rolling. I hope I'm wrong for you, Jets fan. I really hope I'm wrong. But so, yeah, I think bringing in depth, it can also be in the form of players in the minors. I'm, of course, thinking of Brad Lambert, who had, 55 points last year, 7-10 so far to start the year. But this is a guy who maybe, like, Logan Stankoven last year came into Dallas, was very interesting. Way back in 2010, PK Subban came in Montreal, Kel McCarr, Colorado. Okay, like I'm talking big names here. Brad Lambert is in the category of any of those guys. Even Stankoven, who was absolutely lighting the AHL on fire last year. But I will be looking forward to this because I do think this team has an opportunity this year. It will be very interesting to see. I still don't see how a team that has Vladislav Namestnikov on such a high role as a second-line centerman gets deep in the playoff, though.
It's just like kind of dangerous, as you said. Just for me, the point is not sacrificing the chemistry, because like we've seen the Jets winning, but they're not just winning. It seems like they're improving in every game. And just like when you look at their stats, it says it all. Like they're first in goals per game, they're first in goals against, in power play percentage, best goal differential. And
they're cruising.
They're cruising. And for me, a stat that is just like popping off is that they're the only team in the league that has four different players with at least 7 goals. So they found a way to top to bottom line, finding a way to score. Josh Morrissey also have a fantastic season, but I don't want to see this chemistry being broke. We need to be careful on who we bring in.
Yeah, no, you are right. You are absolutely right. We were talking about culture in a previous episode of this podcast. I still think it stands. You need to bring somebody who fits into the culture.
Yeah. Talking about culture, we have a team that has had winning culture in the past few years that weren't doing so well in the beginning of the season and starting improving. I'm talking about the Colorado Avalanche. Max, is this year's Avalanche, are they the Oilers of last season? And I let me explain myself, but it's just like in the way that they're just like paddling their way back after this awful start. Do you feel that they can come back all the way and be super flaming hot in the next couple of weeks?
I don't think they're this year's Oilers simply because I don't think they went as low as the Oilers. And I really think that the Avalanche we were talking about Pittsburgh a second earlier, saying you can't blame everything on goalies. A big chunk of Colorado's problem to start the year was that unfortunately Alexander Georgiev couldn't stop a beach ball. It was absolutely crazy. So I don't think they went as low as the Oilers. But also so far, they have not had last year, the Oilers were the state of of society in the Occident right now. Freaking full of extremes everywhere. That was the Oilers last year.
Yeah.
Like they went all the way down to the bottom of the league. Connor McDavid, for the first time in his life, was barely in the top 100 of points. And then they come back and go like, oh yeah, 15-game winning streak, no problem. Stanley Cup final, yeah, sure, whatever. Like really from one end to another. I don't think Colorado went to those extremes. Also, they were having this tough start despite Kel McCarr and Nathan McKinnon with historic start. Like literally, they were like the first duo or the third duo in like the past 40 years now? When was the start of the 80s? It was 40 years ago now. Why do the eight? Why when I think 1980, I still think 20
years ago? Yeah, still feel the same for me. As we're thinking about 2019, I'm like, this is last year. But yeah, for me also. And like 27 in my mind is just like a few years back.
Oh, that is whatever. Crazy. So yeah, I don't think they went to enough extremes. But I do think they can be the Florida Panthers from 2 years ago. The Florida Panthers, without going as low as the Oilers did, they were out of the playoffs. You know, in Montreal, people were looking at that pick Montreal had of the Panthers. They were like, maybe Montreal has 2 top 5 picks if we can get lucky, and the Panthers win the lottery despite finishing 8th. Well, yeah, we all know how that ended up. So they never quite made it back, because they made it back 1 point in the playoffs. They were the last wildcard team in, and then they found their groove. So far, this is more what I'm seeing for the Avalanche, simply because as of right now, goaltending, injuries, you know, this team is way over dependent of their stars. And I don't see how a team that dependent of their stars gets back in it with the Winnipeg Jets, for instance.
Oh, I like this comparison. Like, you need to have depth. I feel that this is the word of this season so far, like of the scenario of the season. But I feel like they can bet on their talent, you know, to pull through. Can we talk about a second about like what Nathan McKinnon and Makar have been able to do in the past couple of games? Like McKinnon is the first at 30 points in 16 games. If we were talking like a week or so ago, I wouldn't bet on that.
No.
I don't know. He's been...
Here's the thing with McKinnon.
Maybe
will he be the first to go back-to-back Hart Trophy since Ovi in what, 07, 08 or 08, 09? 06 Thornton, 07 Crosby, 08, 09. Pretty sure it's 08, 09.
If the Avalanche go back on top, I feel
even McDavid hasn't done it. Even McDavid hasn't done it. And to start the year, I'm going to be fully honest with you here. I may or may not have placed a very small amount, because if you're like me, a betting man, you do within, your means, and you do it just for fun. But I may or may not have placed a small amount after a week of the season on Cale Makar to win the MVP. Ooh. And I do believe that if Cale Makar stays where he is right now in points, which is top 5 in the NHL, borderline top 5 in the NHL, depending when you are listening to this podcast. As of right now, he is tied 3rd in the NHL.
Yeah.
I do believe he can contend. By the way, the last time that 2 teammates were Hart nominees in the same season, would you take a guess on who it was?
Crosby and Malkin?
No, right team though. Right team, just not the right era.
Ooh, Lemieux and Jagger?
Yeah. The season that was it the first one he came back or the second? It was 2000, 2001. So the first year, oh man, that's absolute. How did that even happen? The first year Mario Lemieux came back in 2000, 2001. He played, that is absurd. He played 43 games. He finished 2nd in the hard voting. Joe Sacking won, obviously, that year, and Jaromir Jagr came in 3rd. So 35-year-old Mario Lemieux doesn't play for 3 years, comes back, plays 43 games, finished 2nd in hard voting, and Jaromir Jagr came in 3rd that year. So that would be, if Makar and McKinnon are both Hart nominees this year, they would be the first teammates to be Hart nominees since Jagr and Lemieux in 2000, 2001. I do believe it can happen, but it's just that in the past week, McKinnon has cut fire in such a way that he now has 6 points. He is 6 points ahead of Makar. So I think he would have to finish a solid 20 points ahead of Makar. If Makar stays close to him, I think there could be an argument that they go, nope, this year he is actually the MVP.
That would be interesting, because they are on the right track to do so. I really feel like it. Max, we talked about Matvei Michkov last week being left healthy scratch from the lineup, I wouldn't thought it would go for another game, but John Tortorella chose to, keep the same team that had win. So he was benched for 2 games. He went back in the lineup last night against the Kings. And I was wondering, do you feel like he's learned the lesson?
No. With all due respect.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take more than this. I do not know the kid, but I do feel that at 19 years old, I think that it will be something that will be built in the long run. I think it's something that will take time. Maybe short term, it's going to help him, but there will be ups and downs in this. So I think it will take more than one benching. I mean, he was good last night. He was good against the Sharks. But
yeah, I said against the Kings, but it was against the Sharks. Sorry.
So it's the Sharks. Well, they're both bad teams, so whatever. So yeah, I think it will take more time. And this is, John Tortorella's old school. I will not be surprised if we see Michkov in the stands again this year.
Yeah. Some things, these things, they take time, as a rapper from Montreal said in one of his most popular album, whatever. I was looking at the Flames, and for me,
that was very niche.
Thank you. In the comments, who did pick up my niche intervention on Loud, who's a rapper from Montreal? Be with me, please, people. I was looking at the Flames, and I was wondering if they should play Dustin Wolf between the pipes more oftenly, because I saw him in the AHL, in the past couple of years. And I don't know if you saw the game yesterday against the Kings, but he came inches away from earning his first NHL shutout. But I'm wondering, with, the beginning of the season that he had, because he's been rotating with Dan Vladar between the pipes, is he finally starting to emerging as a number 1 goalie for the Flames?
He will be, no doubt. And he could go down as the best goalie in Flames history. Mark my word. I know this is a strong comment. I know this is kind of a take here, especially considering that the Calgary Flames have had Mika Kiprusov. I guess you could add in Mike Vernon too. I mean, no disrespect to Mike Vernon. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame after all. Mostly on what he did with the Flames, I would guess. Although he did get his cup in Detroit. Anyways, but not yet. It's not Dustin's time just yet to shine in the light fully. I think the Calgary Flames are actually managing this situation very well, which is funny because last year I hated how they managed it. I think Dustin Wolf was in the American League 1 year too much. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, both goalies are doing their thing right now. The stats are similar. First of all, they both have had 8 starts. Okay, yes, Dusty is 5-2-1, whereas Vladar is 3-3-2. But save percentage, kind of similar. Advantage Dusty 913 to 906, 2.84, 2.60 goal against average. That is advantage Vladar. And even goal saves above expected, really close. 2.91 goal save above expected for Dustin Wolf, 1.67 for Dan Vladar. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the Flames goalies so far are good. They're not bad. They're not average. They're not amazing. They're good. And I think that for a first full-time season in the NHL, that is amazing for Dustin Wolf. I think it's a good thing if Dan Vladar can keep his pace too and make sure that they end up somewhere around, maybe not 41, but maybe 45 games for Dustin Wolf this year. Maybe 43. I do not know, but I think this can end up being a good thing for him. I mean, I'm not going to go and say they can be the new Swayman Yolmark. Far from there. But I do think that for now, you stay the course. As long as they both are playing well, you keep doing what you're doing right now because it's working. Unfortunately for the Flames, the start of the season is already over. That beautiful start of the year. They have unfortunately lost Anthony Manta. Tough tough for the whole season.
Oh, yeah.
I feel for the guy. At 30 years old, that's really a tough injury for Anthony Mata, who was looking for a bounce back season, who was having a good bounce back season.
Yeah.
But so far, you know what? So far, so good.
So far, so good. And I'm with you, Max. I feel like they both seem to be, elevating their games start by start. So keep managing this and just like keep the good competition in there. But I feel like at 23 years old, Dustin Wolf has an enormous potential.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of the guy. There's a Vizina in his future.
Yeah. But for me, you're right. He stayed in the AHL a year too much. But maybe it was good. Like maybe it was some kind of just adding the experience and be fully ready for the NHL. And Max, we've been surprised since the beginning of the season, but
oh yes,
I'm looking at the Washington Capitals and I'm like, are they in the process of like undoing all the plans for the playoffs picture? Because I'm like, we thought about them being out of the playoffs portrait maybe, or being in a battle or something, but we looked at the East and we were saying that the Atlantic would probably have 5 teams making the playoffs. And I'm looking at the Capitals, I'm like, oh, they're playing there and they're kind of in the discussion for a playoff making this year.
Oh, man. To me, the Washington Capitals is not the biggest surprise. I had them as a borderline playoff teams. I had them out of the playoffs. I love the addition. I was just like, that's not enough. But I don't know if you've seen a couple of the clips from behind the scenes. Like, this team is a pack. This team is having fun. This team is a beautiful group. And there are of course, the spotlight is on Ovi, and it's normal. Me first. I'm guilty. I'm here for it. Give me some Ovi. But Dylan Strome, Connor McMichael, both goalies. Mr. Spencer, who I never say the last name because I'm scared that I'm going to say the chocolate name, Cadbury, Mr. Carberry. This is a beautiful team. This is a playoff team. This is a team that is going at least 2 rounds this year. Mark my word. The Washington Capitals are going to go in the playoff. The Washington Capitals are going to surprise. The Washington Capitals are going to play at least 2 rounds. And I'm going to go to dinner with Kevin Laramé, and I'm going to say, I told you so.
Well, if they win, doesn't mean that Ovi scores. So both could happen,
Oh, no, if they win, Ovi scores. It comes hand in hand. It's not good. It's not gonna happen. Imagine for a minute, like Ovi starts fading, but it keeps cruising. What's most likely? Ovi keeps scoring, but the team starts losing, or the team keeps winning, but Ovi starts fading?
I think it's the latter, because defensively speaking, if they keep being tight, it means that they're gonna win. Offensively speaking, well, Ovi's not the guy at he's 75 years old now. He's not the one who's going to backtrack and always be responsible defensively anymore. So he's both going to happen.
Agree.
Mark his words. Well, that is all for our, coast to coast segment, but we are bringing some heat with maybe looking at who's on the hot seat as a team's coaches.
All right, will he or will he not? I have a list of coaches for you guys, and I'm going to ask you a very, very simple question. Will this coach at the end of the season be, or will he not be, the team coach when the season ends? I realized I have a long list. I have a freaking long list. So many coaches, at least their names have come up, like maybe hot seat. Some of them are a reach, at least to me. Maybe we won't agree on this, but some of them are a reach. Well, I'll start. I gave my take on this already, so you already know, but I'm curious to hear you guys. Do you think Mike Sullivan will be the Pittsburgh Penguins head coach for the entirety of the year? Daph?
I feel like when we're looking at this situation, we're saying like he's embedded in Pittsburgh And I don't think it's true. For me, it needs a change, and maybe we're not going to trade Malkin or Crosby this season, but Mike Sullivan, maybe it's the time for him to go. And I don't feel like he's going to be the team's coach at the end of the season.
Kevin.
I have to agree with Daph, because if we're looking at the things that can be changed, and is Kyle Dubas really going to be the one to be like, okay, I'm going to trade Crosby, I'm going to trade Malkin? That's kind of like putting your head on a log and getting ready to be chopped. It's either, if you trade Crosby and you still are not good, guess what? You're losing your job. If you fire your coach and you set it up for success in another way, maybe you stay there for a little while longer. So I do think that Mike Sullivan is maybe on the hotter seat this year so far, because also he's known as a player's coach, right? He's known as a coach who's there to he's an agreeable coach. He likes his player. Crosby likes him. He's been with him for a long time now, 9 years or a little bit more. So you have that affinity. And it's always extremes when we're talking about coaching changes. You go from a player's coach to the rah-rah, back to a player's coach, and back to somebody who can shake things up. Well, we're at the point where the Penguins need to shake things up, and they'll bring in a coach that can shake things up.
We all agree on this. Will we agree on all of them? That will be interesting to see. I did not have that one on my list to start the year. Then the year started. It started off wrong. Now, I mean, they are third in the division despite a 7-7-2 record at the moment we are recording this podcast. Kevin, is Jim Montgomery in danger in Boston?
I don't think he is anymore, but I do think that they need to adjust how they're playing, and they need to work around some of the deficiencies they had so far offensively. Pasternak is not firing on all cylinders. Brad Marchand is not necessarily firing on all cylinders. So things need to be worked on. But I think Jim Montgomery has already shown this year, with big outbursts and big conversation we've seen on the bench with Brad Marchand that was very publicized, that he does know how to handle adversity and also help his team progress and get better. This is one thing to remember for the next few coaches. How a coach can help his team progress through in the same game, and then from game to game to game. We're seeing Jim Montgomery being able to influence positively his players and his team. So I do feel Montgomery is safe for now.
Daph.
And I completely agree with you, Kev. And what's been maybe popping out for me is the way that Brad Marchand had Jim Montgomery's back when he had the outbursts on the bench, and saying that he liked the way that Montgomery handled things in this particular situation. So for me, I feel like if he's having, like the players' approval, he's safer. And for me, he's not going to change. He's going to stay in Boston.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. That is one that I didn't even understand why we were talking about this. Among active NHL coaches on their current stint, so let's say Lindy Ruff, who's on his second stint with the Buffalo Sabres, I don't include the whole time, just that stint, Jim Montgomery is far ahead as the coach with the best record. A 744 point percentage, 112 wins, 32 loss, 20 overtime loss. Of course, that's only regular season. I think and he's just been there since 2022. I think it would have needed like a very, very longer stretch of unsuccess for Jim Montgomery to be in danger. I don't think I can say the same thing about Andrew Brunette in Nashville, though. Daph, what do you think of Andrew Brunette?
Oh, when your GM is talking about rebuilding if they're not starting to win, I feel like you're going to be feeling this heat. And I feel like, they've had the same problem of scoring since the past 2 seasons. And I feel like he's not going to be with the team at the end of this season, or if things do not turn around quickly. Because I feel like we don't want to admit that maybe we didn't bring the right players to fill some spots. And we're going to look at a solution. Maybe it's going to be temporary. But as Kev said, maybe it's the easiest solution to go with the firing the coach. And yeah, I feel like Andrew Brunette is gonna pass on this one.
Kevin.
Well, not always do you have your boss as a former coach in the NHL. Not only that, a Hall of Fame worthy coach in the NHL, a Stanley Cup winning coach in the NHL, who always thinks he can do better than yourself. If you're Andrew Brunette, you have to look behind your shoulder because you have somebody that not only brought some players, but it can also do your job maybe better than you do. So that's one thing. Also, yes, I think Daphne is right. He brought in some players. Has anybody seen Jonathan Marchessault lately? I'm still looking for his production. Where in the heck is Steven Stamkos? He brought in 2 players and they have their worst beginning of the season in the last 5 years, each of them. So that falls on the coach. Barry Trotz not going to say I made a mistake. Barry Trotz going to say I made a mistake hiring you, Andrew, and I'm taking over. I'm finishing the season, and we're going to make the playoffs. And I think that's going to happen in Nashville, Smashville, especially when in the Hall of Fame year 2 of your biggest name in the history, your former GM and your former captain are inducted, and Barry Trotz was there. He's very public this year. Well, that tells me that he misses the limelight, the spotlight, and his space behind the bench.
Basically, you're saying that Barry Trotz is going to pull a Dave Grohl on Foo Fighters' second album, The Color and the Shape, when he listened to the drum and went like, yeah, no, that ain't it. And went back and re-recorded himself. Exactly. Well, you're Dave Grohl, huh? Like, you're literally the best drummer in the world at that moment. There's no problem going back behind the bench.
Exactly. That's what I think is going to happen, really.
You know what? I had not thought about that. Honestly, I had thought about Andrew Brunette. I had not thought about Barry Trotz pulling a Dave Grohl and going back behind the bench. And you know what, Kev? You might be onto something here. You might be onto something. I really don't hate that. Actually, I love it.
But we also know that Nashville is not the team that spends the most amount of money outside of their team. So that's a way where, financially speaking, he can justify to the hockey operation above him for, there's not a lot of people above Barry Trotz right now, but you can just say to the owner, look, I think we need a change, and I think I'm the answer. Let me show you how this team can be managed.
John Tortorella put Matvei Michkov in the stands. Will he find himself too on the sidelines at the end of the season? I'm going to say I think this is not only John Tortorella's last year in Philadelphia. I unfortunately think this is the last year for John Tortorella in the NHL. Do what you want with this. Kev, what do you think?
Oh, that's a hot take, but I have to agree. He seems like he's checked out. We've seen John Tortorella in the past. Like, remember when he was with the Rangers and he'd get into, like, verbal fights with Brooksy, Herb Brookside, the journalist? And that was, like, okay, he was on. Now he's, like, mellowed. He's a bit, like, depressed. He's looking at Philly and be like, this team ain't winning in the next 3-4 years. What am I doing here? There's a beach with my name on it, and maybe that's where I need to go.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he's not the best rebuilding coach. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's the end of Tortorella at all in the NHL, because I feel like, as Kev, you said, sometimes few teams need to shake things up, and maybe he can be one of those coaches that you bring in to shake things up and just bring a little heat. But I don't feel it's going to be with the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't feel like
he's going to stay in the same state. Sorry, that thing. He's going to stay in the same state. He's going to get fired by the Flyers, and the week after, Sullivan gets fired, and John Tortorella becomes the Penguins' new head coach.
Oh my God!
Ooh! But are you looking for another rebuild there?
Can you imagine Sidney Crosby coached by the Torts?
Sidney Crosby, healthy scratch. Show me what you can do, boy. Gino, healthy scratch.
Oh my God!
You gotta trust the process.
Scratched.
I think if John Tortorella gets to Pittsburgh and scratch Sidney Crosby, I think there is a full-on national riot here in Canada. You do not bench the golden boy, Torts. That can happen. Okay, I think we're going to go fast on the last 3-1. Martin St. Louis, is he in danger? Daph?
Unfortunately, I think he is because of and unfortunately, because I feel like maybe he's going to pay for something that he's not supposed to pay for. And I don't want to see that. But I feel that maybe he's on the hot seat for the wrong reasons. But I feel he's going to stay the team's coach at the end of the season.
Okay.
But he's in danger.
Well, I've been open talking about how a team doesn't get better during games, in between games. Power play, yesterday Cole Caulfield 2 goals in the power play, but is that really with the concept of the power play or the system or the lack of system and the concept? Not really. It's called individual talent. So I think there's something to be said there. Will they pull the trigger? I actually don't think so. Because if you look at the trio of management right now, if we go from Gorton to Hughes to St. Louis, they came in together. They're the Three Musketeers. I know there were 4, but we'll forget about D'Artagnan for now. So they're the Three Musketeers. Do you really break one off right away? It's like an alliance at Survivor or Big Brother. Like when you have a core 3, a final 3 with somebody, you either make it there or you decide to cut one off to make sure the 2 other keeps their job. If that happens, the one who's going to be cut off is the coach. The GM and the president of hockey operations are going to stick together. They're going to cut one off to make sure that they survive. It's like that Vertical Limit movie where you have Chris O'Donnell and his sister and the dad. They're all hanging on one rope, and the dad's like, cut the cord so you survive. Maybe they'll cut the cord and say that we will fall to his professional coach's death. But I do believe that it won't happen now because what's really to gain? Your players are not there. Patrick Laney's injured. You have some excuses that you can ride for a while. But eventually, people are going to see what I've been talking about, where the progression between games, the practice, the getting better is not there. And that's coaching related. But not this year.
Not this year. Next year. Next year, I think, is the year where it can be do or die for Martin St. Louis. Jared Bednar, Kevin, I don't think so. I think Colorado pulls enough that Jared Bednar is there next year, too.
I think he's in trouble. I really think he's in trouble, and I have a statistic to prove it. Right now,
oh my God,
the Colorado Avalanche are 30th in the NHL with goals against. They've allowed 61 goals this year. They've also allowed them 30th in goals against per game, 381. So you have 2 generational talents in Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon having to play out of their minds to make sure you have more than 4 goals scored a game to make sure you actually win games. And even with their performance of 30 points and 24 points in 16 games this year, 14 points in the last 6 for MacKinnon, you're barely playing for 500. You have terrible goalies, but the goalies are who we thought they were. We never thought they're going to win the Vezina. So it is about playing better. And on the PK, they're 30th as we speak on the penalty kill. They're second in power play, but they're almost dead last in the league in penalty kill. And that comes to system. We've talked about players, coaches. Well, that's a player's coach. And in the longevity of a career of a MacKinnon, of a Makar, they've only known him in Denver. They need to shake things up. Maybe that's a landing spot for Tortorella. Maybe that's where you need a little bit more.
Or off with Torts. Off with Torts.
But a coach that actually brings a bit more of an education and a bit more hard, like an iron hand in a velvet glove, and maybe a little bit tough love.
You know what I just thought about? I actually felt like Torts yesterday in my beer league game.
Ooh.
We were getting squashed, beaten up badly. I was already pissed. I'm competitive, and we have a few. I'm one of the oldest guy on my team, which is hilarious because this weekend I played on. It was the opposite. I was the youngest guy on the ice on the team I replaced for. Anyways, so we have a couple young guys, like early 20s, late teens. Like I think there was a guy who was 19 years old on my team. One of the kids, when we're down big, tried to pull off in Michigan.
No.
I was like, no. I was like, I mean, you know what? If you pull a Michigan in this, like, if you pull a Michigan when we're down bad, even if you make it, I'm actually going to be pissed at you. There. I found out, like, I was sitting on the bench, like, and I was like, oh my God, this is how John Tortorella feels. This is how, well, oh my God, I can't believe, what was the name of the guy with Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon? This is how he felt when he said, I'm too old for this shit. I felt too old for this shit. All right. I felt a bit like...
he was 44 years old in the movie when he said, I'm too old.
Yeah, I saw this. That is actually crazy.
Yeah, I'm almost too old for this.
Yeah, you're almost too old.
But that's a good reason to pull up for a torts for. Yeah.
Thank you.
It is completely not acceptable. And I will say that Jared Bednar is going to stay with the Avalanche. I feel like there were few factors that have been, at play since the beginning of the season. Talking about injuries also that were a big story over there. And I think this is not the end for this relationship, long-lasting relationship.
I agree. I think there's still 1 year of Jared Bednar. Jared. I said Jared. What the heck is wrong with me? Even in French, I don't say that. What the heck happened there? Jared.
Oh, Jared. You don't even say that in French.
No, I don't. I honestly don't know what happened. I can't say like the French got out of me. Like I've never said that in my life. Never said that in my life. Okay, one last. Does Patrick Roy finish the season? I honestly am surprised by the talks around Patrick Roy right now for two reasons. One, he hasn't even been there for a year. Two, the New York Islanders are having a tough start to this season, but it's not that dramatic. I mean, at the moment we are recording, they're like tied for the last place in the wild card spot. Okay, so Tampa has a game in hand. They have the upper hand, but still. To me, I think like it comes more from what from the beginning seems like a clash of personality. It was surprising to see that Lula Moriello was the man bringing back Patrick Roy in the NHL. I'm surprised by this. You know what? I was saying off air before we started the show to Kevin, like, if anything, Patrick Roy at the end of the season, because he has a historic, I will not be surprised if he goes, I'm out. Like, this isn't for me. Because, but still, I don't think he will. I think he's older, more mature, and all of that. I don't think Patrick Roy is in any form of danger right now.
No, I think we're kind of like, in the beginning of a new relationship, you're still learning from the reaction of each other. And there are some things that might not work, but you're working through them. I think that the Islanders and Patrick Roy are there in their relationship. They're still at the beginning and there's still some things to improve and a lot of work to put into that relationship. But for me, it's not he's not in danger right now.
Agreed. Kev?
No, I have to agree also. I don't think there's anything that we can say, particularly for the Islanders, that would say that he needs to lose his job. The window for the Islanders is not right now. You look at the division, there's a lot of good teams in the Metro right now. So you're not looking at you're missing anything. You're in, they don't say rebuild for the Islanders, but you're in a acquisition mode. You're looking for players that can come in over the next year or so, either from the free agency or trade that could be possible, or misfits from other teams that can come to well, I guess Belmont, New York now, and make it better. And with Patrick Roy, you're looking at what really, I think, what brought him to New York and why Lula Moriello wanted him is not just for the coaching and the rah-rah and his reputation. It's one thing that we forget.
He's a great tactician.
Well, not just that. He's a good educator. And we're looking at a player who was really, a coach who was helping player in Quebec City to be developed into NHL players. And we've seen a lot of players from his time at the Quebec Remparts having a great career in the NHL. And I think that's part of it. Look, I'm going to bring you in. You'll make our kids better. You'll have the respect of a lot of players. You're going to bring some eyes to the table. You remember last year when he was named, the amount of Quebec journalists that made the 6-hour drive to New York, it was insane. Went from 2 journalists to like 20 covering the team. And I think all that together makes a lot more sense. And you need time for that educator to teach.
Agreed. I completely agreed, and I don't think the New York Islanders are a team looking for a rebuild. I think that they are in that spot where they need to stay in the mix, to use a word that we're using way too much these days. I'm kind of saying we're gonna need to bring something else because getting some Mixmania vibes here. If we're gonna have some very niche Quebec references on the show, let's go all in. Thank you everybody for joining us today. So these are the coaches that are currently on the hot seat. Let us know, who do you think actually deserves to be on the hot seat? Who do you think will be gone by the end of the season? And who do you think is a bit of a reach out there on those hot seat? My name is Max Vanout, alongside Daphne Malbeuf and Kevin Laramie. This is Hyperdrive Hockey. Thank you so much for listening. We are available on Game Over Network on YouTube. Give us a follow on Spotify, Hyperdrive Hockey, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast. If you have the time, please drop a review, drop a 5-star. It helps us. It tells all those algorithms kings out there that we are listened to and that we deserve to reach more people. Have a safe day. Enjoy your hockey days in the coming days, and we'll talk to you on the next episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.